Hi, welcome back to Creatio's Tech Hour. My name is Lena, and today's topic will be alternative ways to implement permissions with the help of business rules. You're probably wondering what that means, what is alternative, how do we implement permissions without the object permission settings. So this is an interesting case which is inspired actually by a question during one of the guided learnings that I did last month. So again, thank you to the participants that do ask us questions either during our regular training sessions or by the way, if you have any questions or any cases that you want us to cover, please make sure to leave a comment. We are happy to take kind of like requests, topics that you would like us to cover, and to put them in our future videos. So today what we are going to be covering is how you can implement checking access permission, whether a user has a permission, and integrating that with business rules, because business rules, if you remember, they allow you to do a lot of things in terms of what to make visible on page, what to make mandatory, things like that. Because with object permissions, what you only have access to a column of a particular object if you wanted to make it visible, or if you want to hide it, basically not the column itself, not the field from the page, but rather the content of it. So with business rules, when a field is hidden from the page, it will remove the field entirely. And if you remember, we're not limited to just fields. You can do tabs, you can do details, basically field groups. So you have a little bit more control of what you want to show or maybe hide from a particular user. But the question becomes, well, how do you work with user roles with business rules? Because by default, that's not allowed. You don't have an option to select a user role. Basically from the section wizard, from the page designer where you work with business rules. So today what we're going to take a look at is basically how to implement a solution that does involve a bit of coding, but as you know, I am not a developer myself. So I will show you how you can use an example basically that you can then copy, and by changing just a couple of things in it, you can utilize in your own business cases. So first, let's take a look at what I've achieved on one of the applications that I already configured that, and then we'll go step by step through this entire process. So let me log in here. This is one of the applications where I already configured the following example, and here in the account section, what we have is we're hiding the banking details from particular users, and we can define who those users are. So first, I'm logging in under the user that has access to that detail. So I'm gonna go under accounts, and what I'm going to do, I'm gonna just open one of the accounts. Let's do Sunrise Investment. It doesn't really matter because again, this is the detail that's present in all the records. And here it is. Here's banking details. Here's the information in it. Now, let's log out and let's go to another user that doesn't have the permission to view this banking detail. So I'm going to exit. And here's my another user. And again, just keep in mind, we are not doing this by object permissions, which you can argue that I could have done this by just going through the object permission and hiding, basically making this object, taking off the permission to read the object from the particular role or user. So yes, with the object that could be achieved through operation permissions, but tabs, field groups, and fields, I think are better used using this, basically the business rule approach. So as you can see, I no longer see my banking details. I do see the our company. Obviously, this user has less permissions in terms of which accounts she has access to. So, but still, nonetheless, there are no banking details here. So let me again quickly go back to my original user, I'll show you what we had to do, and then we'll implement it step by step on another application. So what I've done, I open my designer. In my package, I've created a replacement schema in which I've added an attribute and two methods that allow me to basically first check for permissions and then go to setting that attribute. So this is the part that will involve code, and the great thing about it, again, we'll provide you with the source code, so you can then, if you want to copy paste it and play around with it, you can do so. And again, I feel like this particular example does not require you to be a developer. Here, it's if you're not a developer like I am, so basically it becomes more of an exercise in terms of paying attention to the details, making sure that you replace the correct parts of code on the page, and then saving it. Yes, obviously, if you need to do something a little bit more complex, if you need to do multiple attributes and multiple methods, things become a little bit more complicated. You need to know some basic rules of syntaxes. We will not dive into this today, but I'll show you at least how to do two examples. We're actually going to take a look at two different examples. We'll replicate this one, and then we'll do another one for the contact page as well. So here is what I've created, basically my attributes, my methods, and the business rule I created using the section wizard. So let's dive into our example, and for that I'm going to log into a different application. So we'll start basically again from scratch, from the beginning. I'm going to start with, this is a brand new application. I haven't done anything here yet. So I'm going to start by creating a package where I'm going to store everything. So we're working through all these steps, making sure that we have everything ready. So let's go to advanced settings. Okay, so what I'm going to do is click here on the packages and create a new package. I'm not going to go into detail how to create one. Obviously, at this point, you should probably know this if you've done any modifications in Creatio. I'm going to call it demo attributes. And so again, if you worked with anything in Creatio, this is not a beginner level kind of like tutorial. So we're not going to go in detail here, and it's going to be depending on product core. Select and hit apply. So we're going to wait for the package to be created. After that, we're going to set it to be our current package, and after that we're going to move on to step 1, which is going to be to create a new operation permission where we would define which users and which roles get access to particular portion of the page, field group, detail tab. Again, we'll create 2 of them so I can show you basically an example how to recreate, which I already have done, and another example would be for the contact page. I'm gonna hide the entire tab. So let me close this. Let's go back to system settings. And let's find our current package setting, which we're going to change to demo attributes. You don't have to, for this particular example, you don't have to redefine your prefix because we're really not utilizing it. We're going to be dealing with 2 things, with a replacement schema for the contact and account pages, and we are also going to be dealing with the data binding. So neither of those involve a user prefix. Okay, so step 1, create a new system operation. Let's go to the system designer, operation permissions. And I'm going to create a new operation, which is going to be called can access banking details. So you provide a name and the code. Remember, since we are dealing with a code in the page schema, this is the portion that you will be using in your code. So make sure to provide the code that you can work with, so it has to make sense. So let's give it a name, can access banking detail in accounts section, for example. My code will be a little bit shorter, can access banking detail. Save. Now, step 2. Let's bind this new operation to our package. This way, when you transfer the changes, because what you might forget if we go on to the next step and basically start working with this schema, is the fact that you forgot to bind this operation to your package, and when you transfer your changes, it's not going to work. So let's make sure that we have all of this nicely added to our package. So I'm going to go back to the advanced settings. I'm going to go to my package, click add, and we're going to add data to this package by binding our newly created system operation. The object would be called sysadmin operation. Here it is. And let's select a column created on. This will allow us to quickly sort our operations and find the one that we created. Even if you don't remember the name, you can clearly find it when you sort by created on date. So bound data, and then now we need to select the operation that we are binding, and let's sort. So here, no, that's not the one. Yeah, this is the one. Select. We can also give it a name, because again we'll be doing 2 operations, so let's name this one banking detail, and later on when we add a contact one, we will add it as well. Okay, so this is step 1, system operation, bind it to the package. Now step 2. Step 2 will involve some basically steps. The easiest way to create a replacement schema would be through the section wizard. This way you are not going to make a mistake in the source code, so it's going to create a correct replacement schema. So let's go ahead and proceed with that. This is probably the easiest way to create a replacement schema. So I'm going to go into my accounts section, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to open this page and go into the section wizard. If you basically click save from the section wizard from the main page, it's going to save the section page, but not the added page. So, and if we want the added page saved as a replacement schema in our package, we should access it. So basically just open it. You don't have to change anything. Basically just open it, go back to the section wizard and click save. And the system will automatically create 2 replacement schemas for you to work with in your package. So this is a standard process. This should not take too long. We haven't made any changes really with this section, so this should be fairly quick. Again, I'm working with cloud, so if you have your local instance, your local environment, things are going to be much faster, but I'm showing this for anybody who wants to try this out and take a trial site to work with. So okay, I can close this. Now let's go back into our advanced settings, into our configuration, and this is basically where we need to do a bit of coding. So as you can see in my attributes package, now I have 2 replacement schemas. Another thing that got added, again, this was done automatically by the section wizard. I'm not going to touch this. You can actually delete this sys module added. You're not going to affect anything. It's still going to transfer correctly. But if you're not sure, at least at this point, you can leave it to there. It's not, again, it's not affecting anything that we are doing. So let's open this schema. So here, what we are going to do basically, and what you can do, the easiest way obviously would be to go back. I can go into my example, just completely copy paste this code into the newly created replacement schema in another application. But I'm going to show you just a slightly different approach. I'm going to show you exactly what you need to insert. First, we're going to do an example where I'm not changing anything from my example. I'm just showing you where I'm inserting things. And on the second example, I'm actually going to be modifying this template, showing what you need to change if your own use case is different from what I'm showing you now. So first things first, let's replicate this by not just simply copying it, but copying only those things that we need to do in this portion in this designer. So first, you will see that I need to set up my dependencies at the top. This is something I'm not changing. This is called write utilities. Again, I'm not going to be going into explanation why we're using this. You can find, if you're a developer, you can find examples of these dependencies being utilized in other pages, other sections, and so on. Basically, if you need to find a way to create something, oftentimes you can refer to what's already created in Creatio, find the right methods and so on to use in your own development. So this is, these two I'm going to copy without any changes. So first and second. And by the way, yeah, this little tutorial, so to speak, use case is inspired by one of the questions that got asked during the guided learning, and it was asked by a non-developer. So what we are showing you is how to do this if you're not a developer. So again, because this is quite simple. So now I have my dependencies. Next, I'm going to set my attributes. And again, at this point, I'm just copying it from my example and bringing it into here. So what I'm creating here is basically a attribute or virtual column, which will have a value, false or true. It's a Boolean, where if the person has access permission to a certain operation, which we set, they will have access. We're going to utilize this in business rules. We'll say if the attribute is true, then grant access permission to detail, tab, field, anything. So basically what you're granting permission to will be defined in the business rule. But this is basically a virtual field, that virtual column that allows us to set a value, whether it's true or false, whether a user has access to that operation or not. So how do we find this out, whether the user has an operation? So for this, we'll need to set our methods, and we'll have two of them, which is first going to be, again, we're checking whether the user has the permission, and then we're setting the result. So again, I'm just copying everything from my source material. I'm not writing anything here. As you can see, it's going to be initialized when the page loads, and it's going to check our can access banking detail. So what are we doing in the banking detail? Well, we're checking whether the user has access to operation can access banking detail. So this is the operation, the code. It comes from the code that we set for our particular operation. So it has to match the code that you created. Now let me quickly go back. Let me find the operation created on today. Here it is. can access banking detail. So copy this code into here, and this is the name of our method. And again, you have your comments, so you can see the explanation of basically, you're providing the explanation of what happens here. Then basically on the second method, we are setting the attribute being true or false. So again, we're checking can access detail, and then setting the result into the attribute. So banking detail visible, this is our attribute, this is where we record this particular result. Now, at this point, I am ready to save. You can also delete anything in diff. It's created by the section wizard when it created this page. You don't need it, but at this point, again, I'm not going to delete anything additional that we're not checking, just so we're not removing accidentally something that was supposed to be there. But with diffs, you can remove them as well. Now, in preparation for this stream, we ran into an interesting bug. Let's put it this way. And I actually will cover this because from the trainer's perspective, if something is not functioning correctly and you have to go kind of like around it, at least at this point, and I'm using 7.18.0 version. So if you're watching this in the future, hopefully this video will be popular later on. So if you're watching this, if you're using other versions, maybe previous ones, or maybe you're using a later version, things could be a little bit different. This could maybe eliminated, or it didn't exist. But in the current version, I'll show you the issue that you might encounter. And because again, in preparation for this stream, it took us a while to figure out why it's happening and how to make it work. So let me close my configuration and let me refresh basically my application. So if I go into my accounts section at this point, remember, I just set my attribute and I just set my methods. I haven't said anything about what needs to happen in terms of in my account section. This is going to be done with the business rules. But if I'm going to go now into the account section, or that section that you modified, and try to open one of the records, you will see that I do get basically an error. The page is not loading. If you're encountering this, you'll see an error in the console. So let me quickly show you that. Here it is. Here is the file undefined, and so on. The reason I'm showing you this is that you to spare you some time in terms of trying to figure out what you did wrong, how you didn't copy this correctly. Well, actually, you copied everything correctly. Let me start with that. There is no problem in the code. But there seems to be a conflict between the editor in the configuration and the section wizard, maybe? I don't know. We are not sure at this point yet, at the time of this stream. So the one way to get rid of this issue, which is kind of, if we didn't click on the accounts and just went straight into the business rules and saved this, I would not even know that this existed. But because again we tested this so many times, we actually kind of found this this problem, which we will report, and hopefully again it's going to be fixed. Because so what I need to do at this point, and as you can see, there are some issues even if I'm in my section wizard. Not all the tabs are present, so something is acting up. The way to get rid of this is to go to section wizard again and save this page here. Even if you don't configure the business rule, which we're going to just do in a second, let me click save. This will help you get rid of that issue, that conflict, for whatever reason that appears to be happening. Again, at this point, we are not yet sure because we just discovered this, but it's my duty to tell you that don't worry, it's not the problem in your code, it's the problem in the application, at least at this point. So let me refresh, and you will see that this should get rid of our issue. it's just taking a while to load. Or maybe not. Let's try from the section. Let me do the hard reload. Am I still getting the issue? Do I have any issues? Okay, here's my account section. And this doesn't seem to be fixing the problem. Surprising. Okay. Okay, let me try again. Oh, I think it was loading. It was a little bit too fast. No? Inspect. The undefined is still here. Source. So let me double check. Maybe I made a mistake. Okay, so rights utilities, function, dun dun dun. Doesn't seem like we have any issues here. Set, I haven't changed. Let me just double check my operation permission. Maybe I entered it differently, because I can't change this, so this is something I'm going to copy here. Perhaps there was an issue here. No, it looks like I've entered it correctly. Okay, let's try one thing. Is basically let's set up our business rule and hopefully save again. So again, this is something that we encountered and looks like it tested that this fix, but maybe it's not working. So let's double check one more time. So open the section wizard. Let's do the edit page. Yeah, here it still has issues. Let's try saving again. Okay. Okay, so let's try to see if this worked. Okay, I have my page back. Another thing that I will mention as well, if this fix didn't help, try compiling your application, then go through the step again. Sometimes with the trial size that you're using, or not, I guess the suggestion from my colleague Kirill would be always to compile your application before using it, just to make sure that everything will be working smoothly. So, okay, as you can see at this point, the banking detail is still here. What I need to do is set up my business rule. So what I'm going to do next is go under View to the section wizard and create a business rule. Again, if a problem like this happens, and so far I've been able to replicate this on probably up to 10 different environments. So yeah, just save it with the section wizard. If it doesn't help, compile and go back, save again with section wizard, and usually this fixes the problem. So let's go to business rules and actually finish setting this up by configuring the business rule. The compile step will only be required once, so if you're using it multiple times. Again, this is an advice that's relevant to working with demo applications. If you're using another environment, local ones as well, maybe you will not see this error, though yesterday we were able to replicate that as well. Okay, so my business rule will be as follows. If attribute, and I'm going to select my attribute, being bank detail visible, is true, then show element on page, I'm going to select my detail being bank detail. But as you can see, I can work with anything else here, and plus your attributes can be utilized with any other than actions, any other business rules. So you're not really limited to just these access permissions. You can make things mandatory. You can do a lot of other things as well based on the attributes setting, but today we're going to be focusing on the permission particularly. So detail, apply, let's go to the section wizard and hit save. Remember, right now we did add the operation permission, but we didn't define who has access to that permission. So even as a system administrator, which my current user is, I don't have access to that permission. So what I should see once everything is saved, let me refresh, is that I lose access to that operation permission, to that detail. So from my user's perspective, it should disappear. As you can see, it's no longer here. So let's go ahead and grant my user the permission. Here it is. I'm gonna exit and then enter again just to make sure that all the permissions are working correctly. And let's access accounts again. Okay, now as you can see, I have my banking detail. Now, let's do a second example, which is going to be for the contacts page, and I'm going to show you again how to copy it and paste this code, but this time with changing a couple of things. So again, because it's going to be an example for the contacts section. So while I'm in my application, I'm going to just again go to my record page, open the section wizard, and we're going to save another replacement schema, this time for the contact page. So, okay, all good. After that, we're going to go and create one more operation permission. We're going to basically hide an entire tab on the contact page. It's going to be the contact info. Again, I'm just using the standard demo details, standard tabs, just so you can replicate my example on any product really that hasn't been modified. So let me close this. Now let's go into the system designer, into operation permissions. New operation, and let's call it can access contact info tab. contact info. Okay, good. Now we're gonna go back to the configuration, into the advanced settings. First, again, as a reminder, I'm going to bind this new operation because so far I haven't added to the package. Object being sys admin operation. We're going to bind it separately. So here's the second one. Contact info access. And next, what I'm going to do is go into the contact page. And what we're going to do is basically insert something new. So let me use this example. Again, this I'm copying without any changes. Again, make sure that you're doing this correctly, especially if you're not a developer. Again, you can do it, but it will take you maybe a couple of tries sometimes, making sure that you've copy pasted everything correctly. Now let's call our attribute differently. It's going to be contact info visible. This is our virtual column. So we are not changing the data value type. We're not changing the default value. By default value is false. So this all remains the same. We're just changing the name of it. So that becomes important because we do use this attribute in our methods, so we'll need to replace it with a new name. Now let's go back to the methods. Again, I'm copying everything between my curly brackets, so between this one and this one, and in my methods. Here it is. Now, what I'm going to be changing, again, couple of things. First of all, we need to change the name of our attribute, right? Because it's already changed, contact info visible. So we need to update it here. This is the part that's executed. Here. And you can change it in the comments as well, just to make sure that everything is clear for whoever is reading your code later, that they're not confused. Next, we're going to be changing our operation. For that purpose, let's go back to the operation permissions. Here's our contact info. And change this as well. Now, we can also change the name of this method. So we're checking the can access contact info. Here and here, and in one more place here. Again, this is our methods. If we want to, oh, we missed one more portion where we need to update our comment. So here it is. Contact info visible returns to contact info tab. Let's double check everything. So this can access contact info, check if the user has the permission for the contact info visible, can access contact info, can check this writes utilities, check can execute operation we're leaving as is, operation can access contact info, recording, and basically we're recording this in moving on here to this method where we record things. So so these two match. Contact info visible. Okay, looks good. Let's hit save. Okay. Close. let's see if I get the same issue. I think I'm gonna have the same issue with my contact page. Let's see. Oh, okay. So as you can see, after my compilation, I no longer have any issues. Now, but the contact info remains on this page. Well, that's because we didn't even specify how we're changing the permission to it. So let's go ahead and go into the section wizard. And define the business rule. Business rule being that if the permission is granted, if the user has access to that operation, they'll be able to see the contact info. If not, again, it's going to be removed from the page. So add business rule, attribute being contact info visible, boolean true, action show element on page, tab contact info. So this is a great way to basically remove any sensitive data from the page for users and basically check their permissions and set the permissions for them. Because as you can see here, I'm not just limited by my object, because with the detail, it's a great example, but technically you could do this with operation permissions. Here, this is something that you cannot achieve with operation permissions, with object permissions. So let's refresh. And remember, I didn't add my user to that operation permission, which means I should lose access to contact info. As you can see, my first tab is connected to now. Again, let's just double check that everything works correctly. I'm going to add myself. Let's exit. And open the contact page again. Here it is, contact info. Now it is available to my user. Okay, so this is it for today's demonstration. I'm hoping you found this example useful. I know at least not sure about my colleagues, but I've been asked about this a couple of times, and I think this is about time we actually explained how to do this sort of thing. Again, we appreciate if you have any comments, questions, leave us a message, leave us a comment, leave us a question in the chat, and for future videos, again, we're open to suggestions. This is one of the topics that was inspired by a actual question during the training session. So yeah, if you have any questions, we'll be happy to cover them in the upcoming tech hours. So this is it for today, guys. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next Wednesday. Bye.